Welcome to the second topic on the program. So today we're going to look at research questions and hypothesis formulation. There are several parts to this, but we're going to take it bit by bit. So for these, three learning outcomes or learning objectives are important. You must be able to understand the relationship between research questions and hypothesis. You should be able to develop your own research question and turn them into hypothesis. And finally, you should be able to state clearly and discuss what we mean by null hypothesis. Now, if we think of research question, what do we mean by that? What does it all mean? Why do we need it? In any classical research or investigation, there is a very, very cogent need for you to have research question, because that is what you are supposed to be able to create answers for at the end of your research. And the hypothesis that you are going to formulate, basically the argument of your research, they must be based on appropriate literature and background. So you must do a little bit of in-depth reading and investigation about what is known about what you are investigating before you embark on your work. And that will form the basis for you to develop your own argument about the area of interest or the area you are investigating. Therefore, research questions are very, very important, and they must be related to your topic, and they are the questions that you need to provide answers for you to say you have completed a scientific investigation. There must be questions which you have provided answers to. They must be clear, they must be focused, concise, complex, and arguable. So all these 5 attributes must be there. We'll take them one by one later, but have it at the back of your mind that your research question needs to be clear, because if it is not clear, it's going to be also difficult for you to answer them. They must be focused, which means there is a specific, each question has a specific target in mind, in the sense that when you look at that question, you know what you are supposed to answer. That means there's clarity. Focus means your question is not addressing more than one issue at a time. Concise, they must be short enough and straight to the point. If they are long-winded and unyielding, then you are going to have problem trying to answer them. They must be complex. When questions like what is the name of a place, where did this happen, that is not a very good research question, because they are not complex enough. Arguable, in the sense that they must be formulated in such a way that we can have explanation to really create a proper answer. Not that there is just one yes or no answer to the question. There must be opportunity for you to explain without just saying yes and no. So these are very important. Why? It keeps us focused. Remember, we have highlighted that before. It keeps your research focused and keeps you on track, because if you have research question, you know what are the things you need to address, and it helps you to turn your to be able to develop the argument of your work, because it is the research question you are going to turn to your hypothesis. So remember, before you do it, do a little bit of background work. Review literature that is available on the topic, and make sure you get a good understanding of what has been done, what is missing, and What are the limitations of previous works so that you know what you can address in your current research. So, a good research question must not be too broad and must not be too narrow. So I'm delving into the quality of a good research question. It must not be too broad and must not be too narrow, in the sense that, let's look at an example. If it is too narrow, then there are very few facts to answer. If I give you a very simple example, when was the beginning of the Nigerian Civil War? That is quite easy. You can just state 19 so, and the research is finished. That particular research question is finished. That is not a valid research question for a scientific inquiry. It is too narrow. Then, if it is too broad, then you need to write an encyclopedia in order to write it, to answer it. If we look at an example, why are there differences in the economic development of different regions in Nigeria? That will take you a very, very long time to answer, because you must delve into the history, you must delve into the economic, into the ethnic composition, you must end up in the political development, you must end up in the geographical constraints. So you are going to have to write a whole book or several books before you can finish answering this question. So it must not be too narrow, it must not be too broad. You need to strike a balance. It must be specific. There must be a very, very clear direction in which you're going. If we look at the example I've got here. Does pollution influence sustainability? The question that comes to mind is, which pollution? There is water pollution, there is air pollution, there is land degradation, water pollution, and so on. Sustainability. Which aspect of sustainability are you talking about? Is it economic sustainability? Is it environmental sustainability? Which aspect of sustainability are you dealing with? So when you go through literature and you're seeing such a very broad based question, it should come to your mind that these research questions are not properly stated. Looking at another example, is television a bad influence? Television, there's so many programs on the television. Which one are you talking about? Bad influence for whom? What do we mean by bad? There's so many loaded issues and loaded concepts within that question. So these kind of questions are not specific enough. You must make sure that your question is very specific so that it becomes easy to answer. So make sure you make it specific. Your research question must be significant, interesting, and relevant. Because when you are doing something that is so out of this world that nobody can relate to it doesn't sit with the current literature, then what are you trying to do? Reinvent the wheel? No, you must make sure that your work is situated in the current body of work, and you define where you are departing from the current literature. What is this thing that is interesting that you are bringing into the work, into the research? Significant in the fact that, with the fact in mind that what you're doing must contribute to developing the human existence. We must find your work useful. It must be useful. Either whatever your field is, if you're doing a research and it's not useful, then it's not a significant work. It must be interesting, because when it's interesting, it keeps you going, and it keeps your potential reader also interested to want to read your work. So it must spark curiosity. Once you can tie these three together, significant, interesting, and relevant, then it will excite people to read your work. Remember, it should not be so interesting that you may not be able to answer the question yourself, that it becomes such a riddle that you are so bogged down and researching for the next 10-15 years and you cannot answer the question. So there's need to strike the balance there. It must be unique and creative. This links back to what we're saying about being interesting. When it's unique and creative, you are departing from where other people have stopped. You are bringing a new dimension to what has been done. So that will make it unique, and it sells your work. It makes it relevant because you are taking the existing knowledge, you are adding something new, a new dimension to it, either by the way of investigating or by asking a question that nobody has thought of. So think of these 4 attributes as we have highlighted here. It must be unique and creative. It must be significant and interesting. It must be significant, interesting, and relevant. And it must also be specific. It must not be too broad, and it must not be too narrow. You must strike the balance. So essentially, when it comes to research question, it's about striking the balance.